Hi, my name is Mark Grodzinsky. I'm the Vice President of Cloud Software and IoT at Ruckus. And my partner in crime, who's going to be the voice of God in the face over here on the side, is Andy Barnes. He's the Senior Director of IoT Solutions Engineering. So I'm going to talk to you just for a couple minutes about the innovations at the edge. And then Andy's going to show us all this stuff in action. So I've got two slides. The first one is non-technical, and I can feel the collective eye roll already. But part of being purpose-driven is kind of understanding what the purpose is. So why do we need innovations at the edge? Pretty busy slide, but really we're just seeing a tremendous amount of growth. It's a testament to all of our hard work over the last 20 years. Wireless networking is pretty popular. 50 billion new devices expected to be connected by 2025. That's tremendous growth, right? By 2019, 2020, we had a crossover point where it used to be the network was dominated by computing devices, phones, tablets, PCs. It was the way we all connected to the internet. Now, IoT devices, things are connecting to the network at a much, much larger rate. Of the 50 billion devices we see in 2025, about 75% of those will be things, right? 75% of the new things. So it's going to be a 3-to-1 ratio of door sensors, motion sensors, cameras, all of the non-traditional computing devices. And where are they going? They're going into buildings like this, whether it's a hotel or a home or a multi-dwelling unit, multi-family unit. We're seeing tremendous growth in smart buildings, where we're seeing over 10% growth year over year through 2026 to $230 billion, right? Enormous growth. Everything is being connected. All, from HVAC systems, right? Energy management or occupancy management. People want to see how their facilities are being used. COVID's a great example, right? People are really looking at their real estate investments and seeing, okay, how many people are actually coming back into the office? How are people using the space that I've created for them? I can get a lot of data now and really optimize that space. And for the first time in the 22 years I've been in the Wi-Fi industry, we're seeing new spectrum opened up, right? So 6 gigahertz opening up, new use cases are going to come with that. So a tremendous amount of data is now being generated. So why do we need innovation at the edge? Because you can't just take all of that data and information and just send it up to the cloud. It's cost prohibitive. There are some applications that are latency sensitive. You don't want to have this long turnaround time to send things up to the cloud and back down. It would just create a tremendous amount of network congestion. So we want to bring processing and computing down to the edge where the things are, right? And so what we're doing there is we want to sense, we want to process, and we want to act all at the edge of the network. And there's nothing closer to the edge of the network than the access point itself, right? So we're going to talk now a little bit about the innovations we're doing on the access point. And the access points, I mean, you look at the access point that we have here in front of you, it's got a tremendous amount of processing power. It's got a good amount of memory in it. Now, it could be that you are running much more data intensive applications that will require an external server, but there's a lot that we can do on these access points ourselves. So I'll talk about 3 different things that we're doing here at the edge on the access point itself, and then I'll hand it off to Andy, who is going to show us these things in action. And then once you're able to take this data and do this processing at the edge, how do we roll that up into applications and services that can then do interesting things with that data? So the first thing we're calling is gateway as a service, right? This is, you've got location-based services, you've got asset tags, you've got track and protect buttons, panic buttons in the hospitality industry. You don't want to send every beacon up to the cloud. You want to be able to do data filtering, right? You want to be able to filter out only the things that you're looking at, the beacons that you're looking for. You want to aggregate together, and then you want to send it up. Similarly, using Zigbee 3.0, which is kind of a commonplace in the industry as well. You want it for door locks, door macabre ensemble, energy management systems. thermostats. You want to be able to take the standardized data model, just look for the stuff you want, and that's the information that you send on. So being able to do that data filtering is the first layer of doing kind of processing on the access point. You also want to be able to let people use the radios on the access point for other applications. You flip asset tracking around and you have wayfinding. Now the device itself is beaconing, or actually you want to actually have the access points create their own beacons, right? So now the access points are, you can have them customized with their own UUID, major and minor values, so that they're acting as the beacons. You can have third-party applications running on the device itself, translating the GATT profiles that you're connecting over Bluetooth, and allowing that access point to now see the data that's coming from these devices. So actually having other people running code on the access point itself. And that's where we get into the platform as a service, right? I can't tell you all of the different applications that are going to be happening 2, 3, 4 years from now. We have a direction that we're going, but we don't have all the radios on the access point that we may need to connect to all of these devices. It doesn't have a Z-Wave radio on it today. It doesn't have an Ocean radio on it today, but you can plug those in through the USB port. You can run a Docker container on the access point itself and enable new functionality. Matter is getting a lot of buzz, right? It's, it's a new, protocol that's bringing together a lot of different things and a lot of big players and ecosystems. The standard doesn't come out till somewhere towards the end of the year, but then the ramp will happen. Software upgradable, run a container on the access point itself, and now you'll be able to enable new functionality. So that's what we mean by running a platform as a service. So now you can run it as a gateway, you can give people access to the radios, or run a platform, and then we can really take that data and show what we can do with it. So
for platform as a service, in particular, running containers on an AP, does that require anything extra to do orchestration or coordination of those containers? Some of your competitors, it's like a bazooka, when really all you need is BB gun type of thing. How difficult is that really to implement?
Yeah, sure. So actually, I'm going to cover the whole platform, and in fact, each of these as part of my demonstration. So for the purposes of the video, let me introduce myself. So Andy Barnes, I am the Senior Director of IoT Solutions Engineering within Ruckus. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to the different types of as a service that we deploy within our IoT to actually deliver this on the edge capability. So what I have here is our management panel for our IoT domain. And within here, I can actually bring up our list of APs, and this is actually just a test environment within my home. So what I can do is I can select our Ruckus access point that's here, and you can see that I have a couple of radios that have been configured. And each of the radios I've got configured to support different models. So the first radio here, you can see I'm running basically gateway as a service. So that allows me to run multiple radio protocols on the same physical hardware, same physical radio. So here I'm running Zigbee and Zigbee ASA Abloy. And the data, as Mark outlined, is basically collated at the access point. We pre-process it as part of the service, and then we can forward that data out to third-party applications, third-party services as needed. And we can provide different configurations and different filtering of that data depending on the end application that needs that. The second radio I have on this particular access point, I'm actually running as platform as a service. So this particular radio, it's a third-party radio that's provided by Samsung. So we're able to plug that radio in. The gateway access point detects that it's a Samsung dongle, and it automatically downloads the correct firmware container image, loads it onto the access point, and enables that radio with that. So now this platform as a service radio is actually going to enable Z-Wave and Zigbee radio capability on that dongle, and it's going to forward all of the data now to the Samsung SmartThings cloud. So rather than the data being translated and dealt with locally in your network, this particular partner wants the data in their cloud. So when you plug that in, you can actually now bring up your Samsung mobile phone app just like you would to control your hubs or your devices at home. You can see the access point is here. It's been onboarded and it's manageable. And basically you can see all the devices. So if I open the door contacts or any of the sensors within my environment, that all of that data is going into the hub and then is being forwarded up to the Samsung cloud. And again, vice versa, if I trigger a button that's then got a rule set, I can switch on my light bulb based on that. So again, it's very, very easy to upload this platform, upload the Docker container image onto the access point, open up the radios, and then forward that into the ecosystem of the devices and then partner managed services. So the final one I have is what we call our radio as a service. So here what we've got is a BLE radio. So here I've got my standard chipset that's been switching off now into BLE mode, but now I'm loading a container that we're working with another partner, which is they have edge computing for their service. So they're able to detect all BLE packets, decode them. So rather than them just being a BLE panic button or something like that, these could be temperature, humidity, occupancy sensors. They're able to then decode the gap profile, understand the payload, and convert that data into a more user-friendly format that can then be fed out into third-party systems and applications. So depending on the application and the use case, we can support any one of these kind of different modes and do different levels of edge-based application and packet decoding and forwarding, really dependent on what the application is. So really, now once you've got that data, really it now becomes all about how and what you do with it. So as Mark mentioned earlier, we've got all of these sensors, distributed throughout our building and throughout our domain. What we really want to do now is to do something with that. And to that end, we've developed a platform that we call Insights. So Insights basically has direct access to all of that data coming from all of those different services, either directly by connecting to cloud services, coming from our management platform, or coming directly from the access points containers. We basically now have access to that data. And what we do through our Insights platform is through our marketplace, we can actually install into the platform different decoders or connectors that give us access to that information. And so here, for example, we're able to bring information from the IoT controller. So I can configure a connection into our IoT controller or into our cloud platform. We can bring data in, for example, from a Samsung SmartThings environment. So here I can again connect to a Samsung cloud and I can associate it with my account, and I can bring all of my sensor data that's coming from my Z-Wave or my Zigbee radio, and I can bring that information into my Insights platform, literally just by providing the credentials. And I can do that for a whole range of different partner products, including things like door locks. So in a hospitality environment where they might want to monitor all of the door locks, and they have their vision line or their ambiance or their different services, we can connect to those servers and we can bring that information in. So now you're expanding the capabilities. Rather than it being a closed box just for door locks, you can now bring in door locks and environmental and thermostats and panic buttons. You can bring all of this into a single platform and expose that information via API, via dashboards, or via database access. Other partners and applications we can tie into things like cameras. So again, we have the ability to connect to external video management systems or directly into the camera, and we can decode video camera data. So we can do things like trip line detection, people walking the wrong way in a single corridor, people going through the security backwards can be detected by the camera, and that event can be sent into the Insights platform, and then a trigger, notification, etc., can all be handled from a single interface and a single platform. We also have built into Insights the ability to generate text messages, send emails, push data to other third parties. So we see a lot of interest in getting IoT sensor data into other third-party cloud services, the likes of Azure or AWS. They all have their own kind of IoT data, but they all have different protocols to get the information from the gateway into that service. So what we've done is basically developed a way of easily converting and translating the data into a packet that can easily be forwarded up to these platforms. So what I'm trying to get at here is our marketplace gives us the ability to connect in all of this data and bring all of this sensor information into a common platform. But if you can't do anything with the data, you're kind of really wasting your time. So one of the big things that we are also now developing is a range of what we call IoT solutions. So our solutions allow us to basically analyze and act upon the data that we're getting from these IoT sensors. And we can develop these solutions very quickly based on different data models and different algorithms that allow us to analyze, for example, occupancy data coming from off-the-shelf motion sensors or panic buttons from a BLE perspective. So we can build up these different solutions that can then be customized and deployed on the platform. So what I'll do is I'll show you a couple of the solutions just to kind of give you an idea of what you can do. So here I've got a range of different solutions, and really these are acting on the raw data. So if you look at, for example, the devices, here we have a list of all the devices that are onboarded within my environment, and you can see, you know, the current state. And if, for example, I unlock a door lock here, you'll see we get a notification coming in telling us that the door has changed state. So, you know, a proprietary Zigbee protocol has sent that information to the access point at the edge. That has then converted that from Zigbee into a much more friendly format to feed into insights. And then we have the real event. And that information has been logged in the system. We know the exact location of where that lock is. We know what room it's in, which building, which site, which floor. And if there's a camera nearby, we can associate video to that event very, very quickly without having to go in and configure lots and lots of settings for every single device. And we can do the same thing for environmental data. We can do the same things for, you know, temperature, humidity, CO2, pressure, you know, energy monitoring. It's all available to us and captured and logged. And you can see here that we've got lots of different protocols running, because that's one of the big advantages. Whichever IoT protocol you choose for your deployment, it's going to be wrong. No matter which one you choose, you're going to want to use a sensor that's on a different protocol. By standardizing on the packet format and by running these edge processes to do the conversion, we can support pretty much any protocol as it comes out and as it's onboarded into the Insights platform. As I said, everything's captured in the event log. We can also generate things like floor plans, and we can switch between those and drag and drop all the icons, and you get a live overview of what's going on in your environment. Now, one of the key things then, as I said, is what do you do with the data? So let's take a few use cases, for example, in hospitality. So in the hospitality sector, you know, they have a number of deployment and applications that they're specifically interested in. Those could be simple things like panic buttons. So, you know, when a member of staff is out there and they've been deployed and they want to actually monitor if somebody's been attacked in a room, what they need to know is who pressed the panic button, where they are in real time now, and when that happened. So here you can see I've triggered a panic button event. So you get an alarm panel that pops up and tells you exactly who the person is, where that person is right now, and, you know, information telling them to be to send assistance there. As I said, this is all now logged into the database. Video is associated with it. If the person moves from one location to a different location, the position will be updated in real time, telling you that that person has now moved. We can also send text messages and REST API messages to sirens or various other third-party applications very simply from within the application. And we can also, for example, when we close that application, we can register and log who triggered the event. Was an action taken? Was there a video associated with it? We capture all of that and again log that into the database. So this really helps, you know, verticals and, you know, hospitality, for example, to meet requirements that they have today for legal reasons or for application specific needs and staff protection. And there are other things, obviously, like panic buttons, help panic buttons, as well as things like gunshot detectors, and vibration detectors associated with windows, glass break detectors. We can bring all of this together into a single pane of glass, single dashboard with notification. But we can do the same thing now with other data. So for example, as Mark mentioned earlier, in the enterprise arena, because of COVID, now a lot of companies are really trying to understand how their buildings are being used. And there's a lot of very expensive cameras and systems that you can put out there today that for $1,000 for a camera, they can tell you how many people are in a room and how often it's being used. But really what you're looking for is a very low cost sensor, $20, $30. You can put in every single room, and then you can analyze that data and understand from that what is actually going on in each of those spaces. So for example, if I click on a device here on the dashboard, I can change to a different one just to show you that it's all updating. So here we have a different sensor. It's telling you where that is. It's telling you how much data or what the occupancy is over the course of a work day. So you can define your work day from 8 to 6, for example, and it's saying that space has been utilized 78% today. You can see your peak times of the day when you're least using the space. You can also then get that information shared over the last week as well as the last 24 hours. So you can see a breakdown of how the space is being used and how that utilization and occupancy data is relative to your total building occupancy. You can then also expand that. So you can say, well, actually, I want to see that for the last 2 weeks. So let's now go and analyze that same space for the last 2 weeks. And the sensor I'm using is a new device. So let's look at a different sensor and look at how much that is now being used over the last 2 weeks. And I can get a rolling average. And I can now start to really understand what the standard data is telling us and how we can use that. Another thing we can do is for another different application, for example, in MDU or something like that, we might want to look at, for example, the whole temperature environment within that building. So we can select a specific location. We can also then pull up the temperature, humidity, power, CO2, whatever we need to do, and we can then graph that. But then we can take that data and we can start to do predictive analysis on, well, where is the temperature heading? Where is the humidity and CO2 heading over the next 24, 48 hours? Do we need to proactively go and deal with that? We can set thresholds and alarms that, for example, in education, where we've been told, in lecture theaters, as the CO2 increases, data retention, kids start falling asleep, let's be honest. So what we can do is we can say, when the threshold reaches a certain level, let's go proactively now and open the window. Or we can predict that by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we're going to see a higher level and we should go in and deal with it proactively. Or we can set up a rule that says when it gets to a certain level, just open the window automatically. So again, it's about gathering the data, handling it, analyzing it, and then proactively, predictively acting upon that data. And then other applications and verticals might have a different solution. So here is an example where we developed for a customer who specifically was looking at education and multi-dwelling units, and they wanted to detect when the students were jamming the fire doors open. So, the fire department would walk around and just give them a citation every time there was a fire door that was propped open. They would just give them a fine. So we developed this solution with that in mind. So now if the door is left open for more than a certain period of time, it flags an alarm on the dashboard. It identifies it on the floor plan. It also gives you a warning. It'll send you a text message to your maintenance team or to your janitor telling him which door, which floor, which building has a door that's been open. You can also identify, for example, how many events have happened in the hour. You could also see which devices or which doors are the ones that are being left open the most. And then if you wanted to, if there's a video in a camera in the same location, you can click on the event and it'll tell you, well, the door from being closed to open was closed for 2 minutes, whatever. And then from it being open to an alarm happened within 5 minutes, and the alarm has now been outstanding for 31 minutes. But because there was a camera nearby, I can actually now open up the video camera, and there's me opening that sensor. So you can actually now see, well, actually little Johnny was the person that opened the door and propped it open. So let's go and talk to him about the safety and why you shouldn't do that. So really what we're trying to show here is how the IoT data in itself is really very important to a lot of people, but they don't really understand how to get access to it. And providing the network and the edge capability to minimize the amount of data that gets forwarded and sent out to third parties is very important, but you also have to be able to do something with that. And by providing a whole range of APIs and access to all of this historical data within the customer domain, we actually give them the ability to analyze and then graph and run reports and actually get access to that data in a far more powerful manner.
Just confirm, is the data, can you export the data into third-party systems? You're saying you cannot do that?
Yes, we can, right? So
we can expose them.
All the dashboards that we've done, a lot of times they're for demonstration purposes so that we can actually show the capabilities that we have. We are starting to package this up into services as well. Sorry, we are starting to package this up into services as well that we can sell, or we can just send it as a data pipe. So we can have open APIs, northbound, southbound, so that we can just provide data into somebody else's building management system, or if you have your own application, we work with a number of third-party applications where we can just match up the APIs and feed them data as well.
Okay, and then on this dashboard, do you have a granular control of who can see different devices? So if you had like an IT versus OT model,
yes,
you wanted OT to get access to the vibration.
Yeah, so you can make sure that you could have something for the building manager where they can see all of the different properties and have access to, I want to be able to, a lot of times in multifamily units, the building manager is the one who owns the energy costs for the unoccupied units. So for all of those, I want to be able to shut off the lights and pull the blinds down and lock the doors and make sure they're in their home state. Whereas the tenants will only be able to see their own devices and see their own thing. So we absolutely have the ability to have multiple users.
Okay, and then just one last question.
Okay.
And I know it's kind of a tough question to answer.
Okay.
But the relative time to develop a container. So if we brought on like a new device, like you had the tactile lower sensors, how long would it take to kind of spin up?
For you or for anyone?
For anyone.
No, I mean,
clearly,
yeah, I mean, clearly it depends on, how complicated of a device it is, right? I mean, Andy, he's pretty quick. So
yeah, so I did the N-Ocean BLE in about 6 hours.
It's so interesting to me, like how different vendors present, because you guys have a wealth of tools that are in here that you're really highlighting, right? And do you, I guess maybe the commentary or question for you guys to comment on would be, do you see a lot of that come from, like, I know Ruckus has a big, a lot of these are hospitality things. You guys have a huge footprint in hospitality. You also have a huge footprint in the carrier space and those things. Do you see are a lot of those tools coming out of being able to creating new services for the entities that are then providing to,
yeah, I mean, look, I think, the first slide says it all, right? We're trying to create purpose-driven networks, right? So it's, yes, that we are seeing, we have a great depth of knowledge in the verticals that we play in, and we absolutely are building tools that work for them, but we can also then build them so that we can expand beyond that. We're obviously not trying to pigeonhole ourselves into just specific markets, but we want to make sure that we're building the tools for that to enable others as well.